grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm one of your hosts, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating, not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. Today I'm speaking with the manager of the Benevolent Society's Post-Adoption Resource Centre, Sarah Byrne, about the inaugural Adoption Literary Festival, an online event to be held on Saturday the 4th of November from 9:30am to 2:30pm. Welcome to Adopt Perspective, Sarah, and thank you so much for joining us to talk about this wonderful event.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, we're happy to spread the word about this. It'll be an exciting event, I think.
I think it will be. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the Australian Literary Festival is and what it aims to achieve?
Sure. What we wanted to do, and I guess it's based on a US event that we saw early last year. There was a group of adoptees in the US who had come together to do an Adoptee Lit Fest. You can find them at adopteelitfest.com. And they had a number of panel presentations, poetry, journalism, fiction, non-fiction. And I was talking with Julia Kaylock, who has written Child of the Clouds. She is an adopted person. And I said, there's this event, you might be interested. And she said, oh, I can't watch that, but wouldn't it be great if we could do an Australian event? And I said, I think that would be great. And so the idea was planted and we just thought, there has been this growing body of work, written work, published works over the last sort of 10 to 15 years. And we're seeing more and more people sharing their stories in the Australian context of adoption, as well as podcasts as well popping up. And we just thought, let's highlight those voices. Let's do it in Adoption Awareness Month.
I love it. And I love that it's an Australian one because, while there is a lot of similar experience between other countries and ourselves, it's really nice to start hearing those Australian voices filtering through and talking about our unique experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we just thought, we've got our own stuff here. Let's bring that together in one place and share it with others. Yeah. And I think, it offers people to hear themselves through these stories. I've been working my way through all of the books that we're featuring, and I just thought, everybody's story is unique, and yet the themes are common. That people will see themselves in these writers' words, in these writers' books, and I just thought, that's where people feel validated, don't they? They feel less alone, they feel connected, and they feel part of a community.
Could you tell us a bit about why it's important to amplify the voices of lived experience?
Yeah, I think there's still not a lot of general knowledge about the impact of adoption in the wider community. I think people very much feel isolated in their experience. And when they come across, a service like PARC or a service like Jigsaw, they find their people. They find people that understand what they're talking about when they say, I think adoption has impacted me, and we begin to unpack that and we begin to give them a lens for, yes, this is true, this has impacted and this is how, and let's look at that in the context of your own life. And I forget where I started there.
It's one of the things is that, like, as an adopted person, I've often felt adoption in my throat. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but just wanting to scream about how I felt about not knowing what to say or whether it was right to say it, and just feeling almost like I had a hand around my throat, just stopping the words from coming out. And so what I love about this is not only have people written their stories down, which helps them understand it and explore it, but also they're getting the opportunity to then vocalize it, which is the same as you said in groups and in therapy and that kind of stuff, and in counseling, which is really helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think because so often people, when they do talk about adoption with family, friends, others in the community, they get silenced. You know, their views are dismissed. People don't understand that adoption impacts. It's not this, you know, midday movie version of the happy family. You know, there is a lot of complexity to adoption. It begins with loss, you know, and so that, of course, is going to have an impact across the lifespan. And so I think as people share their stories and speak with others, you know, people recognize themselves in that, and they start to feel seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about, on top of you guys, who is running and sponsoring the event?
Yeah, so we, after that initial conversation with Julia, we had, we decided we'd put a call out for expressions of interest for a working group. We had no funding to do this big idea, and it began very grand, and we were going to have an in-person, and let's pull, and then we're like, Australia is vast. That seems maybe bigger than we can get to in this first iteration of this event. So, you know, we sort of had to narrow the focus, and we got a lot of interest from people with lived experience. I said, I want a lived experience working group. This is your event, you know, and as PARC, we will kind of auspice the funds and we'll kind of walk alongside, but what do you want this to look like? And so it was a little messy at the start. You know, we had lots of big ideas, lots of different inputs, and then we kind of got a smaller group together, more focused group that were going to be on the journey, and some of those have a lot of experience in events and the literary world, and that's certainly not my world day to day, so I had a lot to learn on this journey, but they have been a wealth of knowledge and experience, and they have really directed how this event has taken shape.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it reminds me of writing. You put it all down there, you got lots of big ideas and everything, and then, you know, the real, you got to edit that down to something that's workable, especially the first time out the gates, because you've really got to see what can happen, and then you'll learn from that for the next one. Yeah,
that's right.
So what can you tell us about the program of events?
Yeah, so we've got 4 panels on the day. And so, yeah, as you said, Saturday, the 4th of November, 9:30 to 2:30, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Sorry for those of you not on our time zone here in Sydney. And so the 4 panels, first up we have a mixed genre panel. I think that's the first panel. And so that is pulling together different voices writing in different ways, because the other panels are mostly memoirs. So we have 2 intercountry adoptees who, one of them, Ryan Gustafsson, he writes academic pieces and other non-fiction works about adoption. Meg O'Shea, who is a comic artist and shares her experience of intercountry adoption through her comics, and EJ Clarence, who has written for literary journals, The Guardian, and writes really beautifully about her adoption experience as well. So that's our mixed genre panel. Then we have Susanna McFarlane and Robin Luber, who are a mother and daughter who wrote Heartlines, the year I met my other mother. Yeah, it's an amazing story. So I don't know that there's another one like that, where a mother and daughter have come together and you know, really explore the complexities of that journey to connect and the ruptures and repairs that are needed to stay the course, and both needing to do the work to do that. So I think that will be a fascinating discussion. Then we have a panel of mothers speaking. Lily Arthur, who has been big in Origins for many years, big in advocacy, who wrote her book Dirty Laundry in the last couple of years. And that really, you know, is such a powerful account of that forced adoption era, the powers at play in separating parents and children. Gwen Wilson and Vivian Timmermans as well on that panel. And the last panel will be an adoptees panel who have written their memoirs. Abe Madison, who wrote Crazy Bastard, a memoir of forced adoption, which he released this year, which was, to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the federal apology. Daughter of the River Country, Diane O'Brien. So she's a First Nations author who did not know that she was Aboriginal growing up and discovered that later in life and connected to her culture. And Karen Ingram, who wrote Lifting the Lid. So yeah, really powerful books, all of them, unique in their own way and yet, common themes kind of crossing over.
Yeah, there's some great panelists there. That's fantastic. Really well done to get such a great mix of people as well. I know that can be really hard.
Yes. Yeah. And we thought, there's diversity of voices in the Australian context, and we wanted to give voice to as many as we could. So
fantastic. So I know that this idea has been in the works and planning for a while, and I know that many people are excited for it. So can you tell us how they can register to attend?
Yes. So we have ticketing on the Humanitix website. You can go to Humanitix. It is a free event, so you can come to 1, 2, 3, or all 4 panels on the day. Just choose which ones you would like to attend. So if you're in a different time zone and 9:30 Sydney time is a little early, late, whatever the time zone difference is. So people can get their tickets that way. If you can't find Humanitix because you don't know how to spell that, just Google Adoption Literary Festival. I'm pretty sure we come up as the second search on Google. The US festival comes up first. Good on them. They were the first. So pretty easy to find us with a quick Google search or on the Benevolent Society webpage is more information.
And I'll put up a link on our podcast note page as well, so people can go and find it there too. Are there any in-person opportunities happening?
Look, we in Sydney are going to hold a space in Glebe at our head office for people who would like to come together and watch the event in person in the company of others. So that's just for Sydney-siders, unless people want to get up really early and travel from afar. But anyone is welcome to join us there. The team will be on hand. And we've had a little bit of interest for that. So we really wanted to just offer that as an alternative as well as the online space.
Excellent. So do you have any plans for future literary festival events?
I'm going to take a pause. It has been, it's been challenging at times, for all of us in the working group. And I think there's a lot of interest. I know there's many more stories to tell, and we do hope that this is the launching pad for future events. So I don't know if it'll be an annual thing, maybe it'll be a biannual thing. Hopefully, if this is a successful event, accessing funding might be easier. So we received some small grants to support this first event. We had applied to the Forced Adoption Support Service here in New South Wales and were given a grant through them, and also the New South Wales Committee on Adoption and Permanent Care in New South Wales also contributed to the event. So that's been really great to have their support.
Yeah. And like I said before, I will pop up links to the festival information and ticketing on the podcast notes page of the Jigsaw Queensland website. So make sure that you register for the sessions that interest you as soon as you can, because is there, I know it's online, but is there a limit to how many people you can have in there?
We don't believe so.
Yeah.
We believe that the technology should be able to account for as much interest as we get.
Oh, good.
We're really hoping to get a good turnout for the live event online. We are hoping to record the session. So for those that, we are not time zone friendly for, and we've had interest from the UK and the US about this event. So we're just seeking permission from all of the panelists and guest hosts to make sure that they're okay with that, because we think it would be a great ongoing resource for the adoption community and for the wider community to just get their heads around adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations to you guys, to PARC, to everyone who's sponsored or been involved in the event, and to your working committee, because I know it takes a lot to get these things up and running, and they can be very difficult and challenging to get up and going. And I really appreciate that you've all stood and got it done. So
Exactly.
congratulations. I really, I'm sure everyone's going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity just for bringing people affected by adoption to a place where they can add their stories and their voice to that wider narrative. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. And if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, or if you'd like to be interviewed by the podcast, jump on the main podcast page of the Jigsaw Queensland website and complete the prospective guest form that you'll find there. Just note that Adopt Perspective can be and is listened to by people all over the world. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.